Hello everyone, welcome back. Ginger's settling in just fine. She's really perked up and she's one of the family. Feed times will show you she gets very excited, and she's been showing more of her true character as the days and weeks go on. I think we're going to see more and more of her coming out. So that's really, really encouraging. Such a, like we said, such a lovely thing to see. Little bit of attitude with Bubbles. She's got her rug on now because over here the weather's just starting to change. So you put rugs on them at night so they're nice and cosy. But today is the day of giving her a wormer. We don't know when she last had one, whether she's had one, however long ago that was. So a good practice is to give them a broad spectrum wormer. So this does a multitude of the nasty little parasites, all the stuff that's going on in her inside. So if she has got anything, she might have been done, but if she has got anything, this is gonna really help. And yeah, then we know we can mark down when she's had it, and then we can keep her on a course. So one of the sort of horse husbandry side of things is worming for the parasites, and we keep an eye on them. There's very many different trains of thought into horse worming, when you should, when you shouldn't, whether you do poo counts, which is you get a sample, it goes off to the lab, and they do count the number of worms, etc, etc. But yeah, as of now, we're going to start off, we're going to give her a little wormer. And it's one of those things, I don't particularly like having it. It has to be squirted down into their mouth. So it's not a nice thing, but it's a necessary evil. So hopefully she's going to be a willing party. We'll see. So yeah, I'll unwrap this. They come in a little syringe, and you can set. I'll show you on here, depending on the weight. Don't run off. Depending on their weight, I'll just show you here. There's a little marker you can move it to. So with Liv, where she's very, very slight and small, you don't want to be giving them the same as a larger horse. And there's a dial here where you can move it up and down, so they get less or more. But she's going to have the full squirt. And one of the
she knows.
one of the biggest the biggest hurdles with this is to make sure that they get it all. So with a horse, if you put your finger or anything like when you put a bit on them, good girl, as soon as you touch the side of their mouth, they open their mouth. So she's aware of that, and all horses, it's a natural reaction. So we just put that up the side of her mouth, hopefully squirt it in, and then I'll hold her head up so that she makes sure she swallows it, and then we know she's got the dose. It's very expensive, so it's one of those things we don't want to waste. So as I say, it's a necessary evil, but it's part of the process. So yeah, here we go. So get the syringe ready, up the side of the mouth. She's going to put her head up and back, and then get it right up there, squirt it in, and then hold her mouth. Oh look, she's good girl. Now she's got to swallow. So now look, she's like, I'm not going to do it. So we just got to wait. And what she'll do, if I just hold her here, you can sort of massage their neck just to gently encourage and swallow. She's still not swallowed, so she's got it all just about here. So the thing is for her to lick and pull it back. It's quite a thick paste, so it does actually coat the inside of their mouth. So at the moment, she's just holding it, hoping I'm going to let her go, and then she'll spit it out. So we just got to make sure that she swallows it. If I let go, she'll probably put her head down and go to lick. So, or she's very cunning and she's going to hold it in. But we'll see. See if we can distract her. If I pass this back to Mummy and we try and move her, and then come on. Let's see if we can get her to lick. She's playing the game. So she's still not swallowed it. It's still just here. And the problem is if they have feed or hay, so before I did the wormer, I came in and just kept her, put her head collar on and just stood with her for a minute. So where she's been picking at her hay and straw, that she didn't have any in her mouth, because if they have any foodstuffs in their mouth, it can get, there you go, good girl. There you go, so yeah, she swallowed it and it's all on her tongue. It would be a bit tickly, but now when she's doing this, if she had food in her mouth, it would have all balled up, or there'd be foodstuffs in her mouth. It could get in with the wormer, and then she'd drop it out. Yeah, she's like, all right. So yeah, make sure they haven't got stuff in their mouth and it's nice and clear. And then, as I say, once you've done it, the thing is to make sure that they swallowed it. Good girl. So now she can have her breakfast, and we'll show them having their breakfast. Okay, so we've just done the wormer on the lovely little Ginger, and I've come into the feed room. We're going to now do the feeds, and we'll show you the area. Mummy Moon's the one that's in charge of all the nutrition and the feeding, and we were asked a few questions on what do we do to keep them well and keep them looking well and what they need. And the answer to that is it varies massively from times of year, temperature, all the weather aspects, but more importantly individually for the horse. So we notice, or Jenny notices, some change in the horse. Sometimes, we just said the other day that one of the horses here, Magic, the golden horse, who we'll introduce you to more in the future, he just didn't look as good as he did last month, as it were, or last week. You could just tell he was just starting to drop off, and that's one of those things then when you notice the change and you say, well, nothing's happened, nothing's changed in his food. But then there's that other side of it where we say, well, actually we might need to change what they're getting to balance out whatever the indifference is. And it's a little bit hit and miss in the beginning, but once you get used to where they're at and what works with them, the longer they're here, the more we sort of become in tune to that, and then we can give them what they need. So noticing the changes, keeping them maintained, we were asked a question about the feeding, and it's one of the biggest elements, whether it's personal, professional. My first boss said to me, you only get out what you put in, and that is so true. So whether there's a young horse or breeding horses, you've got the competition horses in their prime, and then the retirees that we've got at every stage of their life, depending on what they get will massively affect the outcome. So yeah, Jenny's very good at making sure they're keeping an eye on stuff, noticing stuff, and the horse husbandry side, the welfare and the nutrition. So we're very fortunate that we've had years of experience in the horse industry, but also we've had very good mentors that have helped us teach us about what's good and what's not. So you'll see as we go into the winter, we do boiled linseed and barley, which is very rich in oils, and we have lots of different feeding methods just to supplement them when needs be. But more of that in the future. I'm going to hand you over now to Mumma Moon, who's going to show you a little bit of we'll do the feeds and then we'll dish them out. So it's breakfast time.
Hello, yeah, we're in the feed room, and I'd just like to point out that snorting is not me. We have got a mastiff laying on the floor over there, and she's snoring away. So when you can hear it, please don't think that it's me. So I'm in my makeshift feed room. It's the end of the house, and it's ideal. We've got a washing machine in it and a sink, and I've got my side where I can get stuff done. I always make the feeds up in buckets like this and carry it around, and we put them in their bowls for them. So basically, the first thing I do in the morning is I put this here is called sugar beet, and it's a pulp, and it's really good for horses that have no teeth, basically. And most of ours don't have any teeth, so their feeds have to be quite almost sloppy. So we've got a lot of face wiping. So we put the sugar beet pulp in with a broad spectrum chaff, which I use here. So this is a full chaff. It's got everything we need in it for horses of this sort of age. I mean, it can be given to any horse, but gives them a bit of crunch, so they're not just eating slop. So they all have this, apart from Magic, and I'll go through each individual feed for you. just quickly. Some of them all have the same, but then some of them are a little bit more specialist. So I just get my scoop and I shall show you.
Yeah, and this chaff that you can see here, it's got little bits of maize, so like cornflakes. It's got the molasses, which joins it all together. It's got compressed pellets, all the food stuff, and it's got vitamins, as Jenny said, all rolled into it. So that's the main base, if you like, which is a good forage, and it is complete. And then they get all their individual requirements on top of that.
Okay, so the first horse we've got down there is Stas, and he's quite a big horse, so he has a nice big scoop of chaff. So we pop his in, and then we're at the bane of my life, which is Magic. So Magic is a very hard horse to feed. He's an Alcateki, he's very rare, there are very few in the world, he's the last of his bloodline. When he arrived we thought he was 21, but he's actually 27, so all that is against him. He, having done lots and lots of research, they were fed on a very high protein diet, so we have to give him a high protein diet. He has liver issues, he has old age issues, he has skin issues, he has every issue you can imagine. So we found a feed called Protect, good name for Magic, which he has this. At the moment he's having it twice a day, but I think I'm going to have to take it up to 3 times a day. So again, like Nick said, it's a broad spectrum feed, but it's designed for horses with stomach ulcers, horses that are sensitive for feed. You know, any horse that's got medical issues, this is a good feed for them to have.
Yeah, and this is much more complex than the other feed. So it's got tiny little bits of barley. It's got high fat content. It's got bits of corn or maize. It's got all oats. There's lots of different bits in here, but a very specialist feed for condition. But yeah, the reason I think the reason he didn't have or he struggled in general was because of where he was bred and where he came from. So there wasn't lots of hay and grass. In fact, very no grass. I think sort of a desert environment. So you can see even through evolution that they haven't got over that. So from not thinking, well, we'll put him out on the lush grass in the when the grass is there, that didn't actually help him, did it?
No. So he was born and bred in Kazakhstan near Russia, and he would have had more sort of grain type feed than he would have grass. He doesn't know about grass. So when you've got a nice lush green grass, so when we first got him, I thought, oh, spring, he's going to be great on the lush green grass. He doesn't even know how to eat it. So he wasn't getting anything from the grass. He'd sort of chew it up and then spit it out in balls, and he'd take a small amount, but that wasn't enough for him. So we'd give him a whole bale of hay, but having read up on the Alcateki, they can't process fibre the same way that a normal horse would process fibre. So with an old horse, 9 times out of 10, you want to give them a fibre-based diet because it's easy for them to break down, they feel full, and they look well and they thrive off of it. Giving Magic fibre, a high fibred meal, is poison to him. He cannot manage it, so he can't have it. So he has to have this particular feed. I mean, the amount I feed him is far too much for a normal horse. If I gave this to Epilan, it would finish him off. He couldn't process it. He'd get fat legs, he'd get bad skin, he wouldn't manage.
Yeah, and as they say, their stomachs, the rule of thumb, and from our younger years, they're the size of a rugby ball. So you can see with a bit of hay, a bit of grass, and the feed, they're soon going to be full up. But with Magic, he can take on that amount of cereal.
He can take it on, and he can process it. And all the time that he's processing it, his body's thriving. If he takes on fibre, he can't process that, so it just sits in his gut, and it turns bad, and he physically can't process it. So to begin with, when he first arrived, we wouldn't have known. You think that a horse is a horse, or he is so different. It's like having he's like a toy dog. You have to be so very careful about what we give him and how we feed him. So he mainly has his diet is grain, and then he has something here called lucerne, which is it is fibre, but we make it very wet for him. It has to be soaked, but it's very high in protein. So not everyone can have this, but because it's a high protein, again, it's something that Magic can eat. So he has hay, but he doesn't really eat it. It's there, but I just keep it there just to keep him amused because he balls it up. And he also has a small amount of barley in each feed. just this much again, which will help him with his keeping on his weight and keeping him well. We're then on to Cantho. Cantho Z, again, he's quite he's not a big horse, but he's quite a thick set horse, so he requires quite a bit of food. Cantho would have been fed all of his life very good quality grains and feeds, and we found with most of them, if they're newly retired, they don't cope with just having their feed taken, stripped right back to a basic feed. So he still has a senior mix, which again is designed, it's got all the bits and pieces in it that they need. So this just helps him maintain his weight and maintain a little bit of muscle, because he's just not quite ready to be basic yet. So he has a bit more, and again he has a small amount of barley. And then we're on to the normal horses that at the moment all just have this. So we've got little Ginger. Her first feed in a while, I think, so she gets very excited. And then we have, who do we have next? Then we have Max. So Max is a really good doer. He's a really good, easy horse to feed and look after. He's got something called Cushing's disease, which I'll explain to you later, but he's quite an easy horse. He looks after himself, really, Max. Then we've got Epalan, the king. So he has the best feed that we've got. So he has his chaff, but he's a big horse, Epalan. So he has a couple of these. He has his barley to help him maintain a little bit of weight and keep a bit of warmth. And then he has 3/4 of a scoop of the mix, the senior mix. So he has a big feed because he's a big boy. And then we have little Ginge. Now little Ginge has been a problem. Say little Ginge.
Liv.
We call her little Ginge. We're going to have to change it because the other one's called Ginger now. Liv. So Liv has very, very few teeth. So she's a real issue because she can't eat hay and she can't eat food. So we have to make everything very wet for her. So I give her quite a lot of this chaff because it won't do her any harm, and she picks at it all morning. And then she'll also have a bit of the mix. She has just a little bit because of her age, she needs that little bit extra. And again, she has the barley too. This is only breakfast. You wait till we do dinners. And who have I forgotten? Cinderella, the lovely Cinderella.
I want to come back as one of our horses.
Cinderella is, again, a very big horse. She's a very big horse. So she has quite a lot of chaff to keep her going. They have this twice a day at the moment, but it will all change. As soon as the autumn equinox comes, everything changes. But we'll show you that then. So she's had that. She doesn't need any barley. And then it's just onto the beet pulp, which I'll leave Nick to tell you about because he's very good at explaining about this stuff, because it's called sugar beet, but it's not sugar.
Yes, it's compressed pellets. It's a very clever food stuff. It's actually got that ability to, for us, like Jenny said, one of the most important things is it makes the dinner palatable, more palatable for the older horses, but it's very, very good for condition. It's good for the other thing which probably goes unnoticed is as everything slows down in age, so does their digestive system. So one of the biggest problems with domesticated horses or horses that live in stables is that they're not out. Horses naturally are out on pastures just grazing, so because they're brought in, they spend long periods of time in confinement. The art is little and often, so if you can keep their gut moving regularly and in little amounts, that's the ideal. So those little and often bits really make a difference. So domesticated horses in stationary, not walking about, normally naturally, if you like, wandering about the pastures, having a little nibble all day and all night. So we need to counteract that imbalance. So the sugar beet is one of those great mediums for just helping keeping everything nice and fluid, a good bit of roughage and fibre, and yeah, really works with what we need here, which is for the older horses. So it's just a brilliant medium to help with all the digestion and everything that goes with it. What are you doing now, Mummy?
Okay, so now I'm just running. We give them in summer because they are cold, but it's getting a bit chilly now, so they have tepid water. I don't like to freeze them. All their feeds are quite wet, and that just like a bit like Nick says keeps everything moving. And also we really do have a lack of teeth. You can't express how important it is with old horses about their teeth, because they can't when they haven't got the teeth at the back. With a horse, when it eats, it has its back teeth, has its front teeth like this and its back teeth like this, and it will pull the food in, it will go to the back of its mouth, and its teeth do this sort of motion which will break the food down.
Like a grinding mill.
Yeah, like a grinding, and they'll break the food down, and then obviously they'll be able to swallow it. If you're missing a majority of your back teeth and you're trying to do this and you're rubbing on gum or you're rubbing on, on nothing, there's no teeth there to rub together, that food won't break down. And when that food then gets swallowed, it can sit in their stomach and it can cause colic is the first thing. Or they don't swallow it at all and they spit it out, and you'll find little balls all over their stable.
Yeah, and for those of, I think that's one of the things, we might mention stuff, and we've had a few comments that people who aren't horsey, it's great about educating people, and we're learning every day. Every day's a school day. But Jenny just mentioned colic, and colic is a horrible thing that horses get, and one of the reasons they get it is because they can't vomit, they can't be sick, so it's a one-way ticket. Once these guys eat anything, or a horse eats something, it's not coming back up. And what can happen is something called an impaction, and when the gut starts pushing after the stomach, the gut starts pushing the feed down all the way down through the intestine to its final point of rest, it can get blocked and there's an impaction, and then unfortunately it can lead to the worst case scenario, that they end up having to be intervened, so they'll have surgery to remove the impaction or a part of their intestine, and unfortunately horses, it can be fatal, so a big concern. But yeah, like Jenny said, with this food for the colic or the horrible gut ache, as it were, this really helps, because they don't, it's less likely to get this sort of backup or impaction with a nice sloppy feed. So you can see, it's just nice, and it's nice and easy and soft. So that really is the very best we can do to try and eliminate the colic.
Unfortunately, with older horses, the one thing that tends to get them is colic. It's when their body isn't able to process the food like it used to. It is unfortunately one of those things. So I'm really strict on feed and changing feeds and making sure everything's done properly, because I couldn't forgive ourselves if one of them went through colic and it was through fault. It's one of those things, horses get it, you can't control it, but hopefully, by minimising the risk by doing it this way, our horses will die naturally in their beds, and I'll go down in the morning and find them all died. But that's not going to happen. But we will see. That's one of the other things we need to talk about. It's inevitable here. They're all old, so it's something that the family's used to, and it's a very hard day, but at least we know they've loved at the end. Anyway, moving on from that, 'cause it makes me cry. Here is the green nuts, the grass nuts, and again I'll let Nick explain about these, because these are for magic, and they're magic.
Yeah, so the green nuts are pure lucerne, which is a type of grass, and that is as good as you can get. 100% of the best grass. It's processed, it's chopped down, and then compressed into these tight pellets, so that it's a very small tight pellet. And then what we do again is soak it in, it comes in hot water, in comes the hot water, and then we leave it to soak. And that again, people do feed these nuts dry, but again they swell slightly, and there's that an unnecessary element we feel of danger, that you feed them, they swell and causes all those problems. So again, make it a nice slush puppy, and all's good. Right.
This especially is important. This is Magic's, and this is basically Magic's field in a bowl. So the other horses will go out and they'll eat the grass and they'll get the goodness from the grass. And because Magic can't do that, he doesn't seem to be able to fathom that you can actually eat grass. He has his grass given to him in this form. So this is why he's so special, because we put his field in a bowl. He goes in the field, but he doesn't. He just walks around and looks looks not happy. He'd rather be out eating his green nuts in the stable.
Cool. Well, we'll crack on and give them their breakfast.
Breakfast is coming. Cinderella doesn't only do this for feed, she does it in general. She absolutely loves everything and everybody. Staz getting his. Here he is, magic. You see the shine on him even now. Okay, so the excitement's building, Campo, isn't it? He's ready for his breakfast. When's it coming? Oh, he can hear.
Licking his lips. He has the bigger one after, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
And this one as well.
That one's Ginger. So Campo has to have his on the door like this, because if you don't, he gets so excited he puts his foot in it and drags it across the stable. And here's little Ginge. Good girl. They're nice. And here we have Max and Epelan waiting for theirs. Everyone else has got theirs. So these two are starting to circle and get excited. They know it's coming, don't you? Oh, that's it. Old men, they're at war, see? This is quite normal. They try and outdo each other at feed time. Boys! They're best friends normally. It's just now. Oh, there you go. They've seen the bowls. They're coming.
Ooh.
And that's just bowls just there. That's it. Little Liv. So little Liv, you can just see at the back there, she's always last because she's stabled behind Epelan because they're inseparable. So yeah, we'll go around and I'll show you her feed round there. So both Epelan and Liv have their bowls also hanging up because they're quite old, they find it quite hard to keep their heads down for long periods of time, and because their feeds are quite big, I put them high up for them so they can eat them at leisure and be comfortable. It's quite novel being fed by Daddy today because they're normally fed by me in the morning. But Nick's off today, so you got to feed them with me. Right, we'll put you out in the field in a bit. We're going to go and have a cup of coffee.